Hello, I'm Andrew Gentile.
And I'm Arianna.
And you're listening to Behind the Flicks. This show is all about me sharing as many facts as I know about filmmaking and directors and behind-the-scenes info about movies and whatnot to Arianna. And you'll join us for the ride. Arianna, can we get a review of this episode's film?
A review of this episode's film. It's a very famous film. Everybody knows this film. I did not watch it until this year. I've attempted because there's been some pockets where I try to watch it and my head hits the pillow and I can't focus on it. Twice now. For Monty Python and the Holy Grail. You
do have to be in a specific mood to watch this movie.
Yeah, it may have been my fault for watching it like after a work day or something. In a nutshell, this movie is about King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table going on a mission to find the Holy Grail as was put on them by God himself, which is like King God, because he appears in the sky with just a head and a big beard and a wonderful crown, telling them that this is their life's mission to find this Holy Grail. And they go on all of these adventures and find all these interesting people that try to help them along their way. But really what just ends up happening is they basically just get messed with left and right and fooled and disrespected as king in the court every chance they get. And it's just ridiculous and hilarious, apparently.
Apparently. That does not bode well for the grade, which you will give right now.
Oh man.
I know it's an acquired taste, so you can be honest.
Maybe third time's the charm. But this movie for me was probably like a solid D. No D minus or D plus.
Wow. All right. Okay. All right. No. It's okay. It's okay.
I mean,
I'm a little hurt. I'm a little hurt.
Well, viewers would not take it with a grain of salt because satire is not my genre. There's very few that I like and can focus on because I'm maybe a bit of a simpleton when it comes to movies. I like things to be straightforward. I like things to be super honest. And satires are like brutally honest in a really obscure way. And it's hard for me to sit down and watch a satire, even if it's really good. And so this one is the writing in this is probably better than others. I'm wondering how much of it is improvised because it's just so ridiculous. If any of it is improvised, maybe Andrew will tell us.
I can speak to that, yeah. I can definitely speak to that.
Okay, good, because I'm dying to know how much of these conversations were like in the moment, because they feel very in the moment and absurd. But it was hard to follow and to stay focused on because there is no really hunt for the Holy Grail. I mean, spoiler alert. Can I spoil it for people?
Yeah, go ahead.
They don't find the Holy Grail. They don't even come close to finding the Holy Grail.
They all get arrested at the end. If I could give my take on this film.
Yes, please. I'm dying to know
my little review of this film. Star Wars and Indiana Jones were the movies that made me fall in love with movies. That piqued my interest. Monty Python: The Holy Grail was the movie where I thought, oh, I can make a movie.
Yeah.
I just have to be a good writer, and of course it turns out this movie was hell to make. So yeah, this is the movie that made me feel like I could be a filmmaker. Because it just made me think, oh, the writing is so good, and it seems so simple. Just coming up, it seems so obvious. Just write great stuff, it'll all follow suit. That being said, this movie was hell to make, which we'll go over later. So I hold this movie in very high esteem because this movie is very close to my heart, and it also helped fuel my love of movies. And also, I think the Pythons, the comedy troupe, whose members we'll discuss later, are brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And so, I can see a D, but I respectfully disagree. But
Yeah.
you know what? Different strokes for different folks.
Yeah. Okay. As if you were to break this movie into categories, say like writing, directing, and acting, what grade would you give each of those categories?
We're writing A+.
Yeah.
Writing A+. Directing, it's pretty close to A, if not A, maybe like a solid A-.
Okay.
I give it. The acting, A+.
So this is an A plus A.
It's an A film for me.
Before
It's an A film for me.
Yeah.
This might be the widest dichotomy we've ever had in opinion.
I think
no,
so too.
which is fine.
Well, I think I'm just being pretty harsh on it because I wasn't interested.
Okay.
It didn't captivate me.
Right.
But if I were to sit there and pick apart the scenes, like from a filmmaker's perspective, I might be right there with you because it's not necessarily poorly made. Maybe I just didn't like it very much.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's be fair to you and fair to the movie. If you could change anything in the movie, what would you change? And what did you like about the movie that you would like to see more of?
I feel like I would cut out like one or two of the side quests that happen because there's just so many of them and they don't last very long, and it makes it for me and my like slow down kind of absorption of movies like feel a little jarred. So maybe like either the like old man scene or like the women scene that happens when they go into the house of like the siren ladies. Like maybe those could have been done without, but I don't know. I did kind of like the old man. Maybe the cave.
Okay, so what you're saying is streamline it.
Yeah, streamline a little bit. Spend more time on the long-term joke instead of the individual ones.
Spend more time on the quest for the Grail as opposed to the individual characters and their particular dilemmas.
Yeah.
Was there any bit in the movie that you really liked?
I did like everything with the French guy because their conversations were hilarious.
Yeah.
And I also liked the moments where in the beginning when King Arthur's like, I'm the king and of all the Britons, blah, 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 and everyone was like, who are you? I don't care. I could understand why that couldn't be a part of the movie too much because it would get old, but it was so perfect where it was.
Right.
Like, I wanted to see more moments like that where things should be going a certain way because he's king, and it just doesn't happen.
Who do you think you are? Well, I'm your king. King, eh? I didn't vote for you. You ready for the facts?
Yes, please.
After they ended their legendary British television series, Monty Python's Flying Circus, the comedy troupe known as Monty Python made their feature film debut in 1971's And Now for Something Completely Different. Essentially, And Now for Something Completely Different was composed of versions of some of their best sketches that were originally made for TV and then were refilmed for the big screen. The members of Monty Python were Graham Chapman, John Cleese, Eric Idle, Michael Palin, Terry Jones, and Terry Gilliam, with Gilliam creating animations for their show. And Now for Something Completely Different was not a happy experience for the comedy team, not only because of its underperformance at the box office, but also because they did not have creative control. For their next big screen outing, it was agreed within the group that anyone named Terry would direct. This agreement would later cause trouble down the line, but more on that later.
That anyone named Terry would direct?
Yeah, Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam.
Oh, okay.
So while writing the screenplay for any of their work, the Pythons were very rigorous. Like, famously, they did very little improvisation. So, for example, in their TV series, they had like one sketch that was improvised. In this movie, the one little bit that was improvised was when in the "Bring Out Your Dead" sequence. You know, when the guy's going, "Bring out your dead."
Yeah.
The only improvised part of that movie is when King Arthur passes. Eric Idle, who's playing the guy who's carrying the dead in like a wheelbarrow, says he must be a king. And John Cleese says, "Why?" And Eric Idle says, "Because he doesn't have shit all over him."
Yeah.
That's the one line that was improvised in the entire movie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is impressive.
Yeah.
That is impressive because the writing, I mean, the conversations are so quick and precise.
Mm-hmm.
And like to the point where you'd think that maybe it was banter.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of made up in the moment because it's hard to make something that quick and precise and natural at the same time.
Yeah.
And they accomplished that. I'd say they accomplished that.
They were just brilliant at writing and brilliant at performers.
Yeah.
But there are many problems that plagued the film. For starters, after they wrote the screenplay for Monty Python: The Holy Grail, the group needed to raise money to fund the project. However, because they had already made a film, the idea of another Monty Python film was not appealing to film investors. They went to alternative sources of financing, rock bands, among them Led Zeppelin and Pink Floyd, who invested in the film.
Nice. That's something kind of cool.
Well, it gave them a lot of creative freedom because rock bands aren't going to look at the script. Rock bands aren't going to demand cuts to see like, oh, we need you to change this, we need you to change that. They're just going to, back in the 70s, they're not going to care.
Yeah.
So that was the upside. The downside was that because they were using alternative sources of financing, their budget was extremely low. So much so, in fact, that the famous gag of the knights using coconuts to imitate sound of them riding on horses was written because the film could not afford more than one horse.
Oh my gosh. It's such a present part of the film. Like,
yes.
You can't imagine it without that.
Speaking of budgetary limitations, due to the film's budget, all of the chainmail, which was part of the costume by the knights and various guards, was actually wool. In much of the film, the knights traveled through mud, rain, and other elements of nature, which later led Eric Idle to quip that during filming, quote, "You could tell what time of day it was by how far up your legs the damp had penetrated," end quote.
Uh-huh.
They suffered for their art.
Oh, dang. Well, at least they made it look pretty good.
It looks like real chainmail.
Yeah.
That they had a good costume designer.
Was it really filmed where it says it was filmed in the beginning?
It was filmed in Scotland.
Yeah. Wow. I did have to give that one major props because for a movie like this, you don't really expect it to be like on location like that and have it be so. I mean, I wouldn't call it like it was crazy beautiful, but you could tell that they were in a natural space.
They put a lot of work into it.
Yeah.
And you led me beautifully into my next fact.
Okay.
Before filming began, the castle locations were picked out, all of which were, as we mentioned, in Scotland. However, 1 to 2 weeks before filming began, the Scottish government informed the production crew that they were not allowed to film at any other public castles due to the Python's infamous antics, which the government considered, quote, inconsistent with the dignity of the fabric of the buildings, end quote. So the production crew scrambled to find locations. They ended up finding one castle called Doune Castle, which stood in for most of the various castles depicted in the final film, ranging from Camelot to Castle Anthrax. So, like, other than that, like, island castle, pretty much all the castles in the film are that one castle.
Yeah. I wondered about that because I see I mean, you can pretty much tell. I mean, they do it from different angles, different distances and whatnot. But I'm like, is that the same castle? Is this part of the gag? That it's
it works.
The same place. It does work.
Yeah.
I really like the moment where they're like, okay, come back to Camelot. And they have the singing sequence. And they go, let's not go to Camelot. It's weird.
Tis a silly place.
Tis a silly place, yeah. I thought that was brilliant.
I love, speaking of the French guards earlier, I love that my favorite part, the taunting's awesome, but my
Yes.
favorite part of that entire sequence is charge, and they just charge at the castle itself. Like,
Yeah.
what's the plan?
Yeah, I thought about that too.
Another problem during the making of the film was the clash of directing styles between Terry Jones and Terry Gilliam. While Terry Jones was more focused on the actors, Terry Gilliam was more focused on the visuals of the film. These differences in style led to conflicts within the cast and crew.
And that causes conflict because...
Oh, because like one director would say one thing in the morning, and then the other director would come along later in the day and say, "No, change that." You know.
Ay.
Yeah. Perhaps the most troubling issue during the production of Monty Python: The Holy Grail was star Graham Chapman's alcoholism. At the height of his alcoholism, Chapman, who played King Arthur, drank, by his own account, the equivalent of 4 pints of gin a day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Whew, that's a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
So does that mean he's drunk for like pretty much this whole movie?
Yes. He is drunk the entire movie, pretty much.
Oh, man.
Or going through withdrawals, or both.
Yeah.
His alcoholism frequently led to him forgetting his lines, going on angry tirades, and on the day of filming the Bridge of Death sequence, made him unable to walk across the bridge. In the final film, it is the assistant director who walks across the bridge in King Arthur's costume.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Chapman. Couldn't imagine that. Like, if as a person that's trying to direct someone,
Yeah.
or like just work with them, and they're basically like halfway drunk or feeling miserable the entire
I can't even imagine it.
Oh, the tense. Like, there was never a calm day on set. Not
No.
one time.
No.
Because he's in every scene, almost.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, in between this movie and the next movie he did, he went to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
He was told afterwards that if he ever drank again, that he'd be dead within 2 years. So, in the end, Monty Python: The Holy Grail was a smash success, was the number one film for weeks in America, and is now ranked as one of the funniest comedies ever made. Reportedly, it was even Elvis Presley's favorite film.
Wow.
Yeah. Fun little fact.
Yeah.
At Monty Python: The Holy Grail's New York premiere, a journalist asked, "So what's your next movie?" And Arianna replied, "Jesus Christ, Lust for Glory." This answer sparked the idea for the troupe's next film, the biblical comedy, Monty Python's Life of Brian. So, Arianna, final thoughts on Monty Python: The Holy Grail.
I mean, there's something special about it because, let's be real, it's almost 50 years old now.
Yeah.
And everybody in my age group, especially if they're a guy, has seen it and loves it. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if our generation's kids are watching it and loving it still. And so, like, you gotta give it some props. It's probably gonna be, it's already feeling pretty timeless in its own way for people that are into these kind of films. Because you're right, the writing is, like, it's legit. And it's very hard to do. Not a whole lot of movies nowadays, comedy or otherwise, have natural banter like that that's written. A lot of it, I feel like nowadays, is improvised. You know, we have so many talented improvised actors that go to the big screen that help give that feel to the audience, and to write it as good as they did is like, I gotta give it props. It's a C. It's a C. I give it.
You're giving it a C now.
Talking it through. It's a C. It is solid.
Okay. you don't have to change it. You don't have to.
It deserves it. You gotta give credit where credit's due.
Okay.
It's pretty good. And like I said, maybe third time's a charm. A cup of coffee, first thing in the morning, I need a good laugh. I'll give it one more chance.
Okay.
See if I could do it start to finish.
Okay. My final thoughts on this film is that I just think it's amazing. You know what's thinking back to what I initially said at the beginning of this episode, it wasn't even that I laughed when I first saw this movie when I was like 9. It was more like, oh, this is a movie. Oh, you just have to be a really good writer to to be a filmmaker. Of course, I had no idea what went on during the making of this film.
Yeah.
But I just thought, oh, this counts. This opens up a whole new world of possibilities. I don't have to make Star Wars to be a filmmaker.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was really inspiring for me. So this movie, you know, it may not be the greatest movie ever made, but it'll always have a special place in my heart.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you saw it so young and it inspired you, because we all love Andrew's writing.
Listeners, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, feel free to shoot us an email at independentcareerstudios@gmail.com. If you like this episode, please write a review and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, or YouTube. We'd love to hear your feedback. Behind the Flicks was created by myself and Arianna. I researched, wrote, and edited this episode. My name is Andrew Gentile. This has been an Independent Career Studios production.